Welcome. I am going to put a link in the chat here. That is also posted on the course or on the website where you clicked into the meeting. So actually, Dee, if you could pull that off the website and put that into the chat, that would be awesome. So that will be available to anybody joining us now or later. What that will give you is just a framework and some links to get some resources. Our goal today is just to dabble in Desmos to see some of the possibilities, certainly to address questions that you all here have. And so I'm going to open up my chat, and just any questions that you have are certainly unmute and jump in. First of all, just a little bit of where's your familiarity? Have you at least been in Desmos on the participant side and seen what a lesson looks like? Okay. So we'll go through this part really quickly, but I do want to start with looking at a lesson from the student side. Won't necessarily have you work through all of it, but it will give us a place to talk about some of the different screen options and activities available in Desmos, and then we'll get into the teacher side of it. What does it look like on the dashboard, and how do you find activities, edit activities? Mostly we're looking at more the simple usages that we can get into in half an hour. So in the chat is a link to the student side of an activity that is put together for the purpose of showing some of the scope of Desmos and the type of prompts and questions that we can give that are built into Desmos. So I'm going to go ahead and open the teacher side, and I'm just going to give you about 2 minutes just to even just click through pretty quickly. Don't feel like you have to do everything. And then I'll open up that teacher side, and we'll kind of look at those side by side so you can see the comparison. Anybody that's joining us remotely will have access to this link as well and can go into the classroom and also go through the activities and see it from that participant side. Welcome. If you're just now joining us, in your chat is a link to a Desmos activity from the student side. So you'll be able to click on that link and just join the class. And we're just giving everybody just a couple minutes to look through and to be thinking about the structure of the questions and the types of resources that are built into Desmos. So while you're doing that, I am going to open up my share screen and show the teacher side of the activity that people are working through. You are welcome to either stay on that student side, look at the teacher side, toggle back and forth. But the teacher dashboard, which is what I'm in right now, allows me to monitor everybody's work. Right now, I do have the names anonymized because of the format that we're in. But that is something I can control. So as a teacher, as long as my kids enter their names as they log in, or they do it from within an account, then I'm going to know exactly who's doing what work. But mine has the names of famous mathematicians so that we can discuss work without connecting it to a particular person. I can go to each screen and look and see the responses that we're getting and to see the work. So for example, I gave a task where I asked you to think about an area situation, and we see some coloring in there as people can draw and annotate and capture their thinking. So I can see both this overview where the dots tell me somebody has participated, A check will tell me if they've completed it correctly in cases where it is something that has correct answers, you know, things that are scoreable. And some things don't actually require something of the student, and those just give a dash to show that the student has been to that page. If you haven't had a chance, I would suggest just toggling through to frame 10 and take a look at the card sort. It's a particularly nice feature in Desmos, and we'll take a look a little bit about how to put that together. Okay, and I'm going to do one of the very powerful things in Desmos that as a teacher, specifically for synchronous discussion, hopefully our activities are so engaging that students want to continue working on them. So I'm going to pause your access to Desmos so we can come back together and look together. And it is both an amazing and it's delightful to see students frustrated that you interrupted their options to do math because it shows that you've managed to find something that engages them. So I have paused your access to it, and I'm going to bring you together to look at the shared screen. I would like to know what your questions are, your familiarity with it. You may already know some of these things, but I would like to highlight some of the options here. So we've shown you the summary screen, which I can get a very quick sense of what screens people are working on. This is also where I can control pacing. So I can pause your access, but I could also limit your access. I could have just 2 to 3 slides or frames that people are allowed to be on. So I can control those kinds of aspects from this. I can pick any of the frames and see individuals' responses. So we've had situations where you could sketch or draw, and I can immediately see all the different drawings and text contributions. Yes, we're all having to be challenged to write with our mice. I admit you all are doing way better than when we would have done this 6 months ago. I think you're right. We've seen some improvement. You saw some of the options with check boxes. So check boxes are nice because we get to see all that apply. We can do that with pictures as well as verbal prompt or word prompts or numerical prompts. So we have some range and options there, which is pretty cool. Does anybody have specific questions that they're hoping to get addressed by this session? Okay. Also, while in this menu, so if we think about what is Desmos, Desmos gives us a way of setting up a series of tasks using built-in structures. And we've looked at a couple of those structures. We have multiple choice, we have checklists. Those are fine. They're not the ones I use the most. The one I really love for elementary is drawing. We give kids very quick, easy ways to say, shade in the amount of this figure to show 3/4, or show a point on a number line. Show how you would chunk this, record your thinking. They can record in words, and also Desmos gives very easy ways to make fractions, which can be a very, or type in equations, which can be a challenge in other systems that aren't math-based. So kids can communicate in text easily, even when that text is mathematical, and they can draw. And those are quick and easy to set up. We can do card sorts, which is one of my favorite things to do. And those are pretty quick to set up. We can embed a quick video if we need to give directions. That's really powerful, asynchronous instruction. And we can even put in some draggable objects. So we have lots of ways that we can engage the students. The design model was for synchronous instruction because they expected kids to be doing this in class and the teacher to be turning around and sharing that work. So there's also ways built in here to take snapshots of student work. So let's do work that's a little more interesting. These drawings, I may want to come back. I'm not going to usually show this teacher dashboard to my students. This is teacher information. I'm going to use these little cameras and I'm going to go through and I'm going to say, you know, I think it's really interesting how Renee showed all the fourths. So I'm going to take a picture and I'm going to capture that snapshot because that might be a discussion we have about how did Renee add extra marks to communicate those fourths on the number line. Whereas Diego did something really interesting, like didn't need all the marks, but yet those marks were helpful. And so those would be great, just real simple images to put side by side. And so when I go to my snapshots, so that I've clicked on these snapshots, I'm going to be able to plan my discussion to say, I want my students to see these two examples of student work side by side, and now we can talk about the math. So that is really at the heart and soul of how Desmos is structured, why they did what they did. They wanted to give ways for teachers to give kids mathematically interesting tasks. And then in middle and high school, we can take advantage of all the graphing calculator and you know, those components of Desmos. I don't know how much we'll use those in elementary. There are certainly some. We do some number line work that we can definitely take advantage of that. But this, just the drawing tools and being able to capture that thinking and then come back and put that in front of students to have that rich discussion about how is the thinking similar on these? How are they different? Why did my student in the blue not need a fourth mark? Are they correct, or did they actually show thirds instead of fourths? Can we get into a good debate about that mathematics? So knowing that's the goal helps kind of understand why it's set up the way it's set up. So in the teacher dashboard, I have that information. Now, I created this activity. What I want to do is just give you a little bit of a hint of how I run from the teacher side of view to, first of all, just if there's an activity I want to use, how do I assign it to students? And then from there, how do I maybe edit it? Because editing is a lot easier than starting from scratch. So let's just take a look at some examples of that and get a little bit of a sense of that. So a lot of this information is here on this handout, so it just gives us a little bit of a framework for keeping track of what we're doing. We saw that Desmos experience from the student side. You saw just a little bit about that teacher dashboard. Let's now look at the teacher.desmos.com site. So that's where I'm going next, is teacher.desmos.com. Now, I think I'm already logged in, so it took me right in. You will probably have to log in at this point. This is where you definitely need to have an account. I just use my Google account, which is really nice. It just keeps everything easy. So I am currently in my account, and there's a menu over here that gives you access to collections that are already made by Desmos. And then I have, in my particular section, are custom. These are collections that I've put together over the last year or so as I've been getting into Desmos. I'm sorry, I want to be in collections here. Some of these collections were created by Desmos that I just said, hey, tag this so it comes up in my stuff so I can find it. So things like these were activities created by Desmos. You can see the by Desmos on there. They organized it, they created the folder. I think of collections like folders. So there's some folders that they put together. Then there's some folders or collections that other people have put together. And so in your document, you see these links. Christine Jenkins, who I don't know, but I've been very impressed that she has curated elementary libraries of Desmos activities, some created by Desmos, but many created by teachers along the way. And so you can see this bank of activities. It would certainly give you some great ideas of ways you might use Desmos at these different grade levels. We've been teaching with it for a while, so I have collections based on different courses that we do through KCM. And then one that I'm sharing with you all is the shared activities for intermediate grades. So on that sheet, you'll see a link that if you log on it, or if you click on it, it can connect into your teacher Desmos account. To do that, I can't really show you because it's already in my account. So let me kind of show you on a different one. Suppose I'm looking at this Conics collection. This one doesn't live in my account. Like, I'm assuming mine doesn't live in your account yet. There's this link for add a collection in the upper right-hand corner. Zoom, you might need to move the window to see it. Sometimes that upper right corner is what gets blocked by Zoom features. So look for that add collection, and then that's going to be on that home screen for you. So I'm going back to the shared activities. We're going to look at Desmos Basics. You all were working through Desmos Basics, and you have a sense of this home screen here. So in this screen, I can do a quick preview. So you're looking through it from the teacher side now and saying, hey, is this stuff I want my students doing? Let me click on the student preview and get a sense of, okay, there's a check-in, there's a drawing activity, so you can get a sense of the activity. Okay, if it's good to go, then I could click on assign. And from assign, I typically use the one that's single session code. It's a good starting point. If you're using Desmos routinely, you might want to set up classrooms and get into using that feature. But single session code works fabulous for the occasional use. It's going to create, in this case, what it created was this course that I set up for this session. And so as you guys logged in, the 5 students in this course is you all. And so, and we can keep this active for months. So anybody that comes back and joins us will also be in this course. If we want to edit it, and so now you have a copy of it, in this upper right-hand corner is a menu. My menu is slightly different than yours would be because I'm owner of it. So I can tweak my copy and just edit it. You may not have that, but I'm sure you have copy and edit. So the first time you grab somebody else's activity, copy and edit. So now you're working with your own version of it, and you can make changes without changing anybody else's work. So I'm going to actually do copy and edit because I don't want to change this particular activity. It does what I want it to do, but I want us to walk through how to make changes in an activity. And I definitely want you to have questions with this. If you prefer to follow along and then try things on your own later, that's certainly fine. But you may find it more useful to kind of open it up on your own screen, get into a Teacher Desmos account, try some things, and sort of try to do the thing I'm talking about, and then ask questions and clarifications so you can feel comfortable that you can do it on your own. So this is the editing screen. This is where I can delete slides, add slides. Yeah, Dee, would you be willing to grab that link for the collection and put that into the chat? So if you have that collection and you put it in your account, do you need me to grab it or do you have it? I have it here, I can grab it.
Sorry, I had gone to hunt the link for.
No, I got it. And that's just as well. So anybody who's following along, if you want the collection that has the introductory activity, I should have pointed that out. So that's on this introduction to Desmos Google document. And that collection that I'm showing you is right there. So anybody who's following along later will be able to find the link there. So that gets you to the collection, and then you open up the activity. And then in the activity, you copy and edit. I'll give folks just a moment to catch up with that. Maybe give me a thumbs up when you're feeling ready to move on.
Is the activity called Desmos Basics and it's on that list? I'm looking on the list that you shared in the chat.
Yeah, the activity is called Desmos Basics.
Okay, thank you.
Good clarification. So when you do the copy and edit, it should open up and look exactly like my screen, but we're actually looking at different copies. So your changes will be different than my changes, and we're each editing our own. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go on, or a question if you have a question about something.
I think I'm lost. I clicked the link in the chat.
Okay.
And it gives me a bunch of collections. Now, how do I find what you're on? Or it says grade 5 on it.
Let me double check. I may have the wrong link there, so that could be my
Hold on,
problem.
it might be me.
Okay, let me double check it. I think it's good you asked because I think it might be the wrong link. So what happens when you put 6 links into a document. Okay. So I'm going to pull it straight from the activity so we know it's right. So I want to share this collection. And so this is the link I know I want. I'll make sure it's the correct link. Give that one a try. And I'll double check and see. It may not be, because it does look like that is the 5th grade link. So let me fix that. Thank you for asking. My apologies for the confusion.
Okay, the last link you gave is correct. I'm not lost anymore.
No, because it was completely my bad. So I'm glad you asked. Thank you for being brave. And then the top activity in that is called Desmos Basics. So my sincere apologies. Once you get to that, we can open up the Desmos Basics and you can do copy and edit. Okay. Thank you for asking. My apologies for that. So we are in the edit mode. Let's talk a little bit about the kinds of things you can do here and the type of activities that you have. So it's kind of nice to put together a new screen because you can really play around with these different options. And so as I have this set of screens up here, the plus sign lets me do a new one and it puts it wherever that cursor is, but I'm going to be able to move it wherever I want. So I don't worry too much about that order initially. I just kind of reorder them as I need them. So a new screen lets me use any of these building components on the left. And as you went through that activity, you saw a combination of many of these. And so you can play around with them. Desmos will pretty much put them in its own configuration once you pick a component. So one of the common configurations I use is the sketch, because I want the kids to draw something. A note, because I'm telling them what to do. That's where the directions go. And then I often have some kind of text input just for them to add details, add questions, explain their thinking. So this is a configuration that I find really handy. And I built that out of sketch, note, and text input. Desmos automatically puts the configuration there. Their reasoning is you need to talk first, the kids should talk after that, and we want to keep that drawing pretty front and center. I can leave them with a white screen if I just want them to draw from scratch, or I can upload a picture. Or when we get into Desmos a little more, you might be more comfortable playing around with using that graphing calculator tool to say, make a number line. Or, you know, in 5th grade, we're doing some graphing in the coordinate. I might want to give them, for example, an image that has that first quadrant there. And I may or may not want that grid lines. So I could, for example, turn off the grid lines and give them that coordinate grid to work on. So I can use the graphing calculator to create the background. It is simply a background. The kids aren't going to be able to move anything on this. They're only going to be able to draw. We can, you know, have them, I can say, graph the ordered pair 3, 5 on it. And that's the written directions. And then I could maybe put in there something about and use the text box below to explain your thinking. I can either have it so you'll see students will see each other's thinking, because that's a big piece of Desmos, or I can turn that off, and so it's just information for me as a teacher. If I want to see what I've put together, that's what the computer, or what the kids are going to see as they move through this slide. So I'm just going to use their pieces to put together a frame. You can do whatever you want as your practice frame. We can do multiple choice. Their one answer is correct. I can have it score that multiple choice because I can tell the system which question to pick, or sorry, which choice to pick. I can do check boxes, which is a click all that apply. I can do the media. So I have all sorts of things. I can do a table. And also, if I do a new screen, there are a couple options that always take the full screen. And one of those is the card sort. To do card sorts, I can add a card that is just text. I can add a card that I need to upload an image, or I can add a card that I make using the graphing calculator tools. And I can do as many of those as I need. So on the text one, I might be making this one 1/2, but if I want that 1/2 done correctly, I'm going to use the math tools. And so it's very easy to type in a fraction. Most interfaces that aren't math dedicated, getting a 1/2 to look proper is a nightmare. So it is not a small thing to do that. I could upload here an image. You know, a teddy bear is obviously not the image we need for this work, but it's the one I had on my computer. Or I could have, for instance, made a number line using the graphing tools, but I don't think I need that one today. Let's do another one that is a math tool. So this one is 1/4. And so then it's going to be ready. You know, I make all my cards and the kids can drag the cards and make their matches. They could even be, the solutions could be trios, in which case they have to put 3 cards together. So anytime they stick cards together, it'll treat that as a grouping. And that way it can actually score and know if they made the groupings correctly. So those are just some of the features that are built in. You know, hopefully you see that you can click on any of these and change the text of them so they're all editable. The main other thing that I want to do in our last 3 minutes is talk about when you want to take something from one and put it on another. So, and this will be recorded. So we're going to open one other activity, and in particular, I want you to know about. So when I'm in my teacher account, one of the really handy collections to know about is their starter screens collection. So they are designed to give some kind of check-in with your kids as they come in at the beginning of each activity. You also have the robot. Robot's pretty cool, but maybe we're a little bored with the robot. So let's flip through, see if there's one of these others that we like. They're kind of open-ended. This is kind of interesting. We can have kids move the dot to show how they're feeling. Okay, I kind of like that. So I like that. I'm going to click on this copy the screen. That's going to put it on my clipboard. I go back to the activity that I was working on. I'm typing a Control-V. And now it's stuck in the middle there. So I actually want it in the front because it's my new starter screen. And now that screen is added to my collection. So if you find work other people have done, especially something maybe just needs a little bit of tweaking, you can just grab it and stick it into your resource. So I won't say it's easy. It takes some time to learn Desmos. Mostly just wanted to let you know it exists. Desmos themselves, oh, one last piece, I would publish this activity. That's what's going to make it ready to use. So now I could assign it, something like that. But what I really wanted you to know is on this screen is Desmos has great resources. So I'm not the expert, just more of an interested and engaged user, and have found it very useful in my teaching this year and like to share that. But definitely check out their resources or reach back out to us. And if we want a second session or a one-on-one, we'd love to be able to spend that time with you digging into this resource. Anybody have any questions for me?
So I do have a question.
Please go ahead.
And I could have maybe not seen what I thought that I saw, but when you were scrolling through some of your collections
Mhm.
that you had, did I see that there were, KCM number talks? Are those
So that's for the course that we
open?
led.
Are those open to people?
Some of the things that are put in that shared one. So these are what we used in our course teaching teachers about number talks.
Okay.
But just to give you a sense of how we used them, we were doing number talks full group, in the Number Talks course, but there were times when I wanted them to go off and do some thinking themselves.
Mhm.
And so this was an example for me. I think it's a nice example of how I think it fits in the Number Talks. So we were doing these dot number talks, and I was hearing from some people in the group, especially with virtual learning. So then I just gave them that code, and it was, okay, go individually, record, show your thinking, show where did the circles go, draw on it. And it was really quick. I just used 2 or 3 screens. They only were out of my core meeting for 4 or 5 minutes. Never left the Zoom, right? They could always hear me. I could see their work. I could see it as it was happening. In fact, I'll go ahead and share it just because I think it's interesting. So this is from a teacher course. And you can see the different thinking. And then I could pull any of that thinking for the discussion. So it's not like it's a bank. So you probably saw the name and we're hoping for a bank. And it isn't that. But I do think it offers a really good way to think about your Number Talks, especially if you feel like you only have a few students responding and you're not seeing their thinking. And all I do is take the Number Talk image I wanted to use and put it into that sketch tool.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other thoughts and questions? Kind of bouncing around screens here in the hood. Okay, well, I think that'll wrap us up for the official session. If anybody would stay after and ask individual questions, I will be happy to stay on and talk some more Desmos. I appreciate you all being here and participating.